Well, welcome to everyone, the team that is here tonight for the first day one of Elevate 2025. We've had a great day. Before we get started, as we get started, I want our team to go around and introduce themselves. I am James McLam. I'm one of the hosts of Ignite, and I'll just toss it to the next one.
All right, I'm Jeff Hagee. I'm one of the hosts as well, and grateful for everyone to be here. Brittany?
Hi, I'm Brittany, and I have mascara running in my eyes. My eyes are burning. So if you see me going like this, I'm also teary because we're all amazing and all the things and happy to be here. But I'm also just dying from the burning. So happy to be here.
Well, I'm a hop in. So my name is Justin. I'm a public speaker. I also am talking. I'm not talking today, but I saw the video that Brittany did today, and I just had to hop on here and to ask her so many questions. Anyway, this is Josh.
Yeah, here to support the stream, and we'll be here and
support the summit, support the speakers, everybody.
Hi everyone, I am Morgan. I'm going to be a speaker streaming today as well.
Well, we had a great first day. We had 5 great presentations that were hosted. Today's host was Brittany. Brittany, you want to tell us who the people were that hosted for you today?
Everybody
that had presentations today?
Everybody that was on sessions. We had Zion, who's absolutely amazing. He's just so cool with his story and his message, especially with prevention and working with Vive 18 on addiction recovery and just overcoming drug use and alcohol free party. There's so much that Vive 18 does, and it's just really cool that he's a part of that. So I'm honored to know him, and I've seen him at other events and things like that. So he's really cool. Then we have Kimberly Clark, who's also equally amazing. I saw her speak at YADAP this past year in 2024, and her story is incredibly powerful. So if you have the opportunity to just sit with her or have her at an event, and her entire story is next level. Morgan, obviously, who I've worked with, we met a couple years ago through another organization, and watching her as an emerging speaker. And I was just at another event here in Illinois where she spoke at. I did not get to see her speak per se, but I have had her on my podcast, and just knowing her story and, how she's supporting young people. Very cool. And then I just want to plug her and Kimberly because the demand for women speakers in the youth market is exceptionally high. So the fact that there's women speakers out there, putting themselves out there is really, really great. And ending with a Nathan Ray, who is literally one of the most amazing humans on the planet. We met a few years back at an event where I was speaking at, and he approached me and he was like, I am also a speaker. And I'm like, what? So we got to know each other, and he's wonderful. And life has, happened to him lately, and we're all just rallying around him and supporting him as he is out there supporting young people, because he loves the Lord, he loves his family, and he loves young people. So it shows in everything he does. So I'm happy to be alongside all of them and all the speakers here for the summit. So.
And before we do a breakdown and let everyone talk a little bit about what their presentations was, and then we talk about the presentations for the presenters that are not here as well, I do want to say to those who are listening, they're listening live or will be watching this a little bit later if they can't catch it live, you still have time to register. You can register. You will get access to this. We had a good number of people register today. Matter of fact, we had someone register as late as 30 minutes ago. I saw it pop up, and they're from Australia. So if you're watching this and you're the person from Australia, good day.
Good day.
Because I guess it's morning there. I don't know what time it is there. So to kick it off and stuff, Brady, if you wouldn't mind, tell us what was motivating you to speak on the topic that you did, and talk a little bit about yours, and then the rest of us will chime in as well.
Yeah, tell us more.
Touche. So that's kind of my thing. It's kind of what I'm known for, is tell me more. And Well, I spoke on that because I think it's so incredibly important for young people. My thing is conversation and connection is how we move out of isolation. And isolation is the number one contributing factor to severe mental health struggle outcomes in teenagers. I said outcomes, fill in the blank. The outcomes are pretty intense. And it's just how can we help young people feel seen? I mean, I just did 3 events this past week, and every single event a teenager said, if not multiple, I haven't talked about how I felt because I was afraid nobody would care or nobody would understand, or, I didn't know how to put words how I was feeling. And I hear it everywhere. And that was what I heard before I stepped into this. And that was also me, right? Like I had all these feelings. I didn't know how to put words to my feelings. And I let these feelings build up. And then, big, massive life things happen that alter the trajectory of your life. And I don't want that for young people. I don't want things. There were multiple times throughout this pathway where I could have spoke up or said something, and I just didn't know how to. So, and it's also like, Tell Me More is not about also like just talking. It's also about active listening, because 1 in 3 teenagers are going to struggle with their mental health, but that also implies that some won't. So in order to talk about how you feel, you have to have somebody to listen, right? And I think that in the world of I'm fine, we've just accepted that as a society, as in like when we see someone struggling, we clearly know they're struggling and they're like, oh, I'm fine. Things are fine. We just accepted that because we don't know how to help. We don't know what the solution is. We don't know what they need. But the reality is we need to take that pressure off of that person too. We need to take the pressure off to have all the answers and provide the solution, when we could easily just say, hey, you don't have to have the solution. You don't have to provide all the answers. All you have to do is create and hold space, because the more that someone talks about how they feel, the less power it has over them. And, anxiety and mental health struggles make you feel out of control. So how do we gain control? How do we take back control? How do we see that we're in more control than we realize? We talk about how we feel, because when we talk about it, like I said, it takes away the power that it has over us. So that's why it's a very simple concept. In fact, that was one of the things I heard this weekend from an advisor after a talk. She was like, I just love this. It's so simple. I'm like, exactly. Because I think like as solution providers, because that's what we are, we provide solutions to problems, is we think we have to come up with this knockdown, drag out epic solution. And it's like, no, actually the more simple and clear it is and more applicable, the more influential that and transformational it can be. So Tell Me More is such a simple thing, but man, you start doing it, you're going to see like really big changes. So that's a little bit about what I spoke about. So
it's funny that you talked about it saying Tell Me More. The very, very first Ignite we did, we had a presenter named Bob Teedy from Dallas, Texas, and known as the Question Guy. He was a long-term, for like 30 years, worked with Cru, or Campus Crusade for Christ, if you're old like me. You remember it under that name. And he said that is the number one question that you need to keep in your pocket when you're with people, especially when you're with a young person. And he addressed it from the aspect of parenting, and that as a parent, you're not going to you ask them a question, they're going to give you a short answer, and you have to say, tell me more. And I met him years ago and heard him say that. And my kids, especially the oldest two, and the 14-year-old now is hating it too. They've grown up hating those 3 words because they know dad's going to say, tell me more. So much so that my oldest would say sometimes real quickly, hey, I know that's what you're going to say, so I'll go ahead and tell you more. So,
but it works, because I think one thing too is we often ask very close-ended questions like, hey, how was your day? Good. That's it. That's what you get, right? It's very closed. It's the door is closed, but Tell Me More like opens the door. It's a non-intrusive conversation that leaves the answer up to somebody else. And honestly, like sometimes when people are like, tell me more, I'm like, I literally have nothing else to say. Like, I have no idea what else you want. But it also shows that person that you care, right? You're caring enough to open the space and open the door. So even if they don't say, tell me more, and they don't give you much, like in their brain, they're recognizing care. And I think that that's really important too.
Anybody got any thoughts on what Brittany did today?
Sure. Yeah, if I could take the mic for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, like this tell me more trick. I wish I had that when I was a kid, because like when I was growing up, I'm from Quebec, which is like a French part of Canada, and I had an English accent when I first got there. Now I kind of switched it up, and now I have the accent a little bit with the English. However, when I went over, like the English accent made me have a hard time making friends. And I was always trying to figure out like how do I make friends? How do I talk to people? This like tell me more thing. It sounds like it's so easy to make friends with that, because I could like imagine, because we all love talking. I'm a public speaker for a living now. Like we love talking. We're all here. We love talking. But the thing is, everybody likes that feeling and everybody likes that space. So just tell me more. Like I could just see the use cases being all over the place. Like what got you to think of that? Like, did you have like a story or just like a blip? Tell me more. And it just like worked.
Well, a couple things. So I'm a former counselor. So curious questions is actually a therapeutic technique. So, getting people to ask curious questions. So the idea is actually rooted in clinical work. But I actually, I heard tell me more. It's like one of those things, just like James said, he's heard that before. It's not like it's this amazing saying that's never been thought of in the history of ever. It's just you hear it in the right setting or from the right person, and it like changes everything, right? So when I was thinking about when I first started speaking, my signature talk was different than it is now. And it actually came from getting out there and doing more speaking, that I started listening to the students, and afterwards, like the kinds of questions they would ask me. Afterwards, like what were they asking me? Like what did they want to know that I wasn't providing the solution for? And the question I kept getting was, how did you overcome your anxiety? And I was like, oh, they're really curious about that. Like they are wanting to know, and I was like, well, I opened my mouth. And that was like my big answer every single time. Like I talked about how I was feeling. And so I was like, well, if that's the question they want answered, then I'm going to give them the solution. And that's like, how do we get them to start talking? Because they so desperately want to. That's another thing I kept hearing was, I want to talk about how I feel. I just don't know how. And I was like, we have to give them a curious question or a statement where it feels non-intrusive. And also on the other side too, I wanted to work on the active listening, not just the talking, because again, not everybody's going to struggle with mental health, but that implies that we will see someone who could struggle. How do we help that person? So it's twofold. Tell me more is working on active listening, but also, how to talk about how we feel and creating space. So
anybody else?
Thanks
All right,
Yeah.
Morgan, tell us what motivated you.
I was just gonna add.
Oh,
Yes, I was also going to add on Brittany's tell me more. I feel like something really cool about that is it takes pressure away, because I think a lot of people don't show up at all because they don't know how to exactly, or they feel like they might be doing it wrong, or perfectionism gets in the way, or imposter syndrome, or whatever it is. So I feel like that concept is a way to show up without all that pressure. So just wanted to comment that. And then for my talk, what inspired me? So I really like the theme of how we all wear masks.
Mhm.
And I feel like the different masks that people wear sometimes are more socially acceptable than others. So for example, in my personal story, my mask at times in my life definitely weren't socially acceptable, but then I did other things, like, for example, controlling my food and my relationships. And those were more socially acceptable masks that I wore. So I feel like to be able to recognize the way that you wear masks, because I feel like everyone wears masks in their own unique kind of way. So just being able to personalize that and reflect on the way that you wear masks and how to be more in touch with your authentic self is what inspired me to do my talk.
I love I love how that you guys didn't coordinate or talk to each other before you did this, but it's like they fed off of each other, and that was so impactful to me, to be able to see these things back to back and to be able to watch all this stuff come in over the weeks and stuff. Anybody have any thoughts?
I want to add to that, James, because that's something I noticed with everything today is everyone really touched on conversations, whether it's the
Mm.
conversations you're having with yourself, your self-talk, or the importance of the conversations with others. And I think it was a really good theme that it's something we've got to be better at. And, you know, Brittany just said it. I need to open my mouth. We've got to have those conversations. And I think that's where we can be helpful, especially with some of the youth, is teaching them how to have these conversations, or where to go for these conversations, or, you know, what these conversations look like that are going to help them.
I was just thinking on Friday, no, not Friday night, Saturday night. My daughter, my 14-year-old, that's the ninth grader, was going to her school's Winterfest dance, and my wife, for some reason, decided it'd be really cool to invite a bunch of three of her friends over to get ready and eat here before they went to a dance. I was not consulted on this. I was just told we're gonna have a bunch of little girls come over here, and so I sat there and I watched them eat as they're in their nice little dresses and their, you know, with their makeup on, and they're all excited and they're giddy and stuff. And I listened to their stories, and there was a lot of preparation for them to put on a fake mask going out. And I was like, you're trying to put on. You're not trying to be your authentic self, because they're scared. They're scared of what could happen if they did that, even though we having the benefit of hindsight know that nothing's going to happen really. Being your authentic self, you're going to end up being in a better place. We can tell them that, they're not going to believe it. So how can we help them believe that? How can we convince them of this concept to say you got to show up as your authentic self and be vulnerable?
I feel like when you're not showing up as your authentic self, the relationships that you're building are based off of that faulty version of yourself. Therefore, those relationships will never feel fulfilling, and you're never really going to feel understood or like you have a true sense of belonging. So I feel like that's such motivation to want to show up as your authentic self, because everyone needs to feel a sense of belonging. Like, that is a need that we are hardwired for. So to recognize that your relationships are going to reflect how you show up, I think is really important.
Ooh. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Well, next one that we can talk about would be Nathan. Nathan's title for his was Embracing Your Life, Managing Stress Through Life's Greatest Coping Skills. And those of us who are a part of this summit and are part of this summit's family understand the power of that message with the backdrop of what his personal life has been through. He's had some tragedies that have come to him since he recorded that. Some family has passed away, some family sickness, some things like that. And yet we've been able to see he just didn't write up a good concept and say, hey, this is a great outline, I'll talk on this. He's living it. Mm-hmm. He's showing it through. So anyone want to share or what they thought about watching his or anything on that?
What I love about Nathan is exactly what you said. Like, Nathan walks the walk and talks the talk, and it's so, one of his things is like laughter, right? Like, one of his big things is how to laugh through certain moments and different things, and the power of like how that is connection, and that's one of the things he brings to his talks when he's talking to students is he is very funny. Justin Bieber, all got the kids singing, it's very true to him. And I've had some conversations with him over the past couple of weeks. And I tell you, like, he will find the humor and the love in everything. And I kind of just wanted to say how inspiring he is to be able to move through tragedy and grief with the integrity that he has. And I just think that that's really powerful. So to anyone who's listening, like, Nathan is just an amazing human being. And I just really just needed to say that. So
I really love how he tied in the fact that, young people are going to undergo stress, but this is a coping mechanism to help you go through that. And it spoke to me because I tend to have I'm a very optimistic person. I tend to look at things very well. in college, I discovered, the verse, "The joy of the Lord is my strength," and it became my life verse for me. I mean, because I wanted to dive into joy in that regard. So I really loved his message, and I don't think it can. I think it's something that young people will scoff at. Maybe, oh, that's just too easy, to have that kind of open attitude. That won't help it. But gosh, it's these simple things that tend to power us through. Any other thoughts?
So I was supposed to meet with Nathan a couple of weeks ago, like on the day that, like, basically he had the tragedy that occurred, was the day we were supposed to meet. And like, we were like shocked about it, obviously, but we also talked with him a little bit beforehand. And when we watched the video today, like what he like broadcasted about this tool that, like, when you're up in your head and dealing with all these things, I could just imagine him going through those things as you speak. And it was kind of crazy because I remember when I was in like first year university, my sister passed away of cancer, and I was doing the same message, same things. And the message that he was conveying was all the tools that I eventually got towards. So I think what's very powerful about what he laid down there is that maybe, you know what, the students, the people that are going to listen to what he's saying, it won't come in. They might scoff, like you were mentioning, James. But when stuff hits the fan, they're going to remember what this guy said.
Yep.
And it's going to come in clutch right to help them out.
Yep.
True that.
Any other thoughts?
Just not on that, James, but just for those that are listening and haven't watched any of this yet, as James mentioned earlier, you can still register and access these at ignitenextgen.com. So make sure to go catch those.
I really should have created a banner for that. So somebody will talk while I do this. Look at there.
Look at that.
There.
That's good.
It's
Registration.
supposed to be scrolling. I don't know why it's not scrolling there. So. Okay, it did show up. Okay. So, all right, I'll hide it for the time being and stuff. All right, Zion was another presenter for the day. And again, he talked about a very simple concept, and that is just really asking. He was like, level up your aura, ask and excel. And really, one of the quotes that we have from him was, asking for help is the strongest thing that somebody can do. We weren't put on this earth to navigate life separately or in isolation. So again, something that folks are going to think, oh yeah, asking, people tell us for help, you don't know how hard it is. But Zion lays it out there. You got to ask. We're not living here by ourselves. Any thoughts on his and the power of what's going on there?
One of the things I really liked about his is the reality of how one event can spiral us down. And when that happens, how easy it is to internalize everything and just push everything else away. And so I think that's the big part of his message, is being willing to ask. And so it was a great talk.
Yeah, and it's so connected to all of them too, like the connections, right? Like, and with his, it's all about like ownership, like the self-advocacy part, like how to ask and realizing that like people can't read your mind, right? Like we go around in life, it's like, well, you should just know how I'm feeling. It's like, well, no, and then that takes the pressure off of it. So I really like what you said earlier about how Morgan's message is all about connection too, and conversation, and then like tell me more, and then like self-advocacy, ownership. And even when we get to like even Nathan's, right, is like the laughter, the communication, and even when we get to Kimberly's, how it's all about, how there's so much power and like her three daily goals, that I really value. And we'll get to that, but I just like how everything is very themey around conversation, which, and again, different layers too, like how to talk about how you feel, or the self-advocacy, the ownership, or the compassion, the empathy. I just think it's really good. I think it's all really good.
I love
Anyone
that point
else?
too, Brittany, about the ownership, because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the time when people are suffering, there can sometimes be this learned helplessness to it. And
Yeah.
when you're able to take accountability for your pain and be able to reach out and do something to take action for that, I think that's really important too, and can also be really empowering to take that level of ownership in your suffering.
Yeah. And I think like one of the themes among all of us is, and I'm sure you get this, Morgan, I'm sure that the other speakers on the panel get this, is sometimes people have said to me like, well, we don't have your confidence. And I'm like, first of all, it's not confidence. You can't get to confidence until you have like awareness and you've accepted yourself. You've accepted these things. Like you can't be a confident person unless there's acceptance. So like wearing the mask, just like you said, like we develop these friendships that are superficial because people like us for who we aren't really. So really, are they our friends? Like it, because they don't know the real us. Like there's like this whole question behind all of that. But it's like, if we can, you know, really take the ownership and accountability and, you know, really accept ourselves for who we are, the power of and is real. You can accept the fact that these are things you struggle with or things you've lived through, like in Nathan's story or Zion's story or Kimberly's story or your story or my story. Like these are all of our stories are different, but it all comes down to we accepted that this was who we are and we did the work to get better. So the power of and is real. You don't have to live there, but once you just accept it, then you can do the work. The work has started. So I just think that's really powerful. So I went off on a tangent.
That's okay. No, I definitely as well like saw a lot of that positive like ownership that you guys are mentioning. Like it seems to be overlying like most of the talks today. They're like, I'm fine, or showing up as your expected self, like in Morgan's. And when Zion was talking about like lift your hand if you would help somebody if he came to ask you for help, and then foot in mouth, well, like gotta talk about your things. Like, oh yeah, that's what I would have done. Like, just take it out. Like, yeah. I just love how like everything in all these talks are just like binding together through different versions of it, different tools for different situations, right? Anyway, really cool.
It is really cool that all five of these kind of built and woven into each other. There was no intentionality in that. It was not the reason that these five are together is I was like, oh, Brittany's going to be the host on today. She introduced me to these four people. I'm going to put them on her day. That's how those four came. That's how it came. Actually, there was more than four people that she asked, and there's some overflow in the other days, but these were the first four names that I remember her saying. So they had them down. So I don't want the other people to get offended that they're not on here, but she didn't like me. No, she did. It's just these are the first four that I had written down in my notes, so I put them in order. But that just shows how this was meant to be this way. So, any other thoughts?
I think, and I'll before we go on to Kimberly's, which by the way, her message is all part of this too. Like, in the things that she's been through, very similar to like Nathan and Zion's story. Like, she, stands alone with her own story also. But I think like, to anybody listening, it really just comes down, we all chose our hard, right? Like, and like what I mean by that is like what we lived through, our stories, our experiences, we could have just stayed there, right? We could have lived there and just accepted that that was just the path that our life was on, the trajectory. And that's really hard to do. It is hard to just be like, this is my life now. Like that is really hard. But what also is hard is to do the work, is to accept that this is just something we're struggling with or living through. And we've got to do the work and opening our mouth and being vulnerable, which Kimberly talks about. Like we have to do the work, which is hard to do. And it's a journey every single day. We don't cure these things. They don't leave us. Like we manage them and we live with them. And I think that it just comes down to choosing your hard, and we're not special in that we are, what we've gone through is not unique. I think that who we are as people is unique. And I think that's really important to acknowledge too, is that people are not alone in how they're struggling, and how you're feeling. People do understand. And, it's how can we help you take that next step towards healing or growth, right? So choose your hard.
Well, let's just jump right into Kimberly's while you're out there. Kimberly's title was Resilience Unlocked, 7 Keys Every Teen Need. And one of the quotes that stuck out to me that was, mastering how you look at yourself, how you see yourself will help you with your thoughts, and it'll help you with your behaviors. And again, she had no idea what everybody else was talking about, and yet she's echoing everything else everybody's talking about. Your thoughts on Kimberly's today?
Well, first of all, I love this. This is why I believe there is absolutely zero competition in the speaking industry, like among all of us. Because the way and the experiences, we could all say, quote unquote, the same similar thing, but we're going to deliver it differently based on our experiences. And I think it's really important to know that. But one of the things I love about Kimberly's is her 3 non-negotiables that she talks about, which is a physical, mental, and spiritual win, like every single day to focus on those, and just how powerful that is in moving yourself forward with things that are healthy and serves you, especially like her sharing her experience on, like I said, the word vulnerability is like her word, like her key thing, I think, in the midst of all of us. And just how that is a strength. Like once you do it, and just like talking about how you feel or taking off the mask or whatever, like once you do it, it becomes so much easier to keep doing it, right? We just got to bring ourselves to do it. But I really like the mental, physical, and spiritual wins she talks about. So yeah, that's my take on Kimberly.
Anyone else?
I also love the idea of celebrating yourself in those wins every day, just because that idea of positive reinforcement, because those are the little things that I think a lot of people overlook that help maintain wellness and resilience. It's kind of like the idea where a lot of the time, for example, if you hear someone that's depressed, a lot of people will say, well, what are you grateful for? And when you're in that place, like, you don't want to hear that. It's one of the most annoying things that you could hear. But at the same time, when you actually practice those things in a preventative way and also in a healing way, it actually works. Celebrate wins, like what Kimberly is referring to. It does work. So don't want to admit that, but it is true. And I think that she does a great job being able to have the categories and everything.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
From what I gathered from like her story is that, like, especially like the tips, is that I was just hungry. I was just hungry to hear a little bit more of that, this personal story. When I was listening to the video, she was like talking about her like rich background, like military service, etc. And I was just like, these tools come from someplace. Like, what is this? Like, anyway.
You should get with her. Her story is very layered. It's very, very good. It's a good.
Isn't her story going to be? Isn't there a documentary story coming up on her by the one of the Christian broadcasting networks is interviewing her? So
yeah, she randomly, we were all in my husband's truck, like 6 youth speakers just crammed into this truck, and Morgan was there, and all of a sudden it got quiet, and Kimberly's like, yeah, they're making a documentary on me, and we're all like, what? Like, it's just like, what is happening?
What?
So she like dropped that bomb on
Like
it.
about to leave.
Did y'all see that Saul, who's one of the speakers, was on Dr. Phil?
No?
I did not see that.
Yeah, go look on his page and look through it. You'll see him being interviewed by Dr. Phil.
I'm gonna go write that down. So I know.
And I'm like, what just happened? It's like- so
I love that.
and when if you haven't watched Saul's yet, you'll see a familiar face in his video.
I have not watched this yet, so I'm definitely gonna.
And this will actually make the third summit in a row that this particular person has shown up.
Interesting.
You know him very well.
Why do I think it's Phil? Why do I think it's Phil? Am I right? I knew it. Okay. I just knew.
The first, I had to edit it because the first like few seconds was Phil just sitting there in the video. I'm like, I need to edit that a little bit because that's going to be confusing. So I had to edit. I had to do a little careful editing on that stuff. So, any other thoughts on Kimberly's? I don't. Any overall impression of the day so far?
Excellent day.
I thought it was a great day as well. I thought that it's a great start. It was a powerful start. We did have some people who guessed correctly last week what the song was going to be today on the highlight reel. So if you couldn't tell, so
I'm too.
Y'all even know? Does this crowd even know? So I know you know, Brittany. Anybody? Yeah. So
Isn't it Brittany's signature?
It's too predictable. I'm too predictable now.
well, all you gotta do is just look over your shoulder, and you could have figured it out.
I know. I'm sorry.
So Brittany has actually helped me decide what musical themes we've done for the last 2 summers. Because of her and my affection for 80s rock, we did 80s rock this past summer, and then this one was based off. Oh, she's got an 80s theme movie. We'll go with music all the way around on this one. So
There's no
last year,
other-
last winter, we only did 3 days instead of 4, and I did the 3 songs in which the Brady kids sang on the television show. So.
But share, James, when you're asking Tammy and I about what songs we wanted.
Oh Lord.
Oh, so I had written down what the songs that I was picking out for them if they said it doesn't matter. And so I go to Jeff and he tells me a song and I'm like, that's exactly the one I was going to pick for you. And I go to Tammy and I say, and she says, well, this is what I listened to when I was, before every game. It really got me pumped up. So I'd like this one. And they're all from movies, 80s movies. And I was like, that's exactly the one that I was going to pick for you. So it was like,
I'm excited.
So tomorrow, and I can see Kevin is on Instagram watching this and stuff there. So Kevin's is tomorrow. I'm up tomorrow. Let's look at the lineup for tomorrow. We've got, I'm talking about a superpower you're not using. Kevin's going to talk about helping teens rewrite their stories, which is a powerful, powerful presentation. Mike is going to talk about, can I kiss you? Do you ask? His is very, very insightful and impactful. I'm talking about a topic that really we need, that people don't address really enough, and that is learning to about boundaries and consent in budding relationships.
Nice.
Is powerful. Nikki's going to join us to talk about 4 simple steps to kickstart your future career. That's a brilliant thing on helping folks understand what they need to do if they want to get a job. They want to get it going forward. That is her sweet spot in what she's doing there. And then Sam's going to talk about goal setting, empowering high schoolers to chase their goals as well. So you guys got to spread this information. Remember what we said earlier. If you're listening and you have not signed up, or if you know a school, we had a lot of teachers today that signed up. And I know that you are teachers that have signed up because when we get notifications of what emails they are, they're all, based out of a school system somewhere. And if you see some of these videos early on and you want access to them, next week we'll have dedicated URLs that the presenters can give out and we can give out that you can go straight to their page and you don't have to go through all the filters stuff. So if you find one and you want to do that, hey, let's talk to you about it and we might be able to drop you one. Otherwise, we'd invite folks to join our VIP, which is $49, and you get access to not only all 20 of these, but all the ones from the previous 3 summits, which will put us now, about 90 total? Isn't that about right? 90 total?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's about right. About 90 total presentations, some free downloads as well, and stuff. Oh, I was reminded, Morgan, you were one of the few that gave us a download as well. So I hope people took advantage of that as well. So, let's see. Yeah, they go to your presentation. They could have seen it on your page. Yep. So, any closing thoughts from the crowd?
Just to add for what you said, it was a great start. I think we're going to have a great week, but today was a great start. Some great presentations and appreciate them all.
Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, audience, for being here. We're going to end the live stream. Then I'm just going to say hey to these guys, and then we'll see you guys tomorrow. We've got a few, we got a few things, people who've chimed in. If in future things, if you want to write comments for the team, you can and send it to us, and we will be able to do this. But thank you, audience.
Thanks.